Inside the human mind, there's a place where emotions don't collapse loudly. They just fade quietly. This place isn't chaos. It's silence. It's the emotional abyss where feelings aren't expressed, they're stored. Where longing isn't named, but endured. Where pain doesn't demand attention, but slowly reshapes the self. This abyss isn't created by one single event, but by time, by repetition, by years of emotional compromise. And for many women over 40, this abyss becomes a familiar, quiet companion. By the time a woman reaches midlife, she has learned how to function. Even when she feels disconnected, she knows how to show up, smile, respond, care, give, and just keep going. She has mastered the language of responsibility, but seems to have forgotten the language of her own emotional needs. To the outside world, she looks stable, dependable, strong. But inside, there is often a quiet erosion, a sense that something essential has been missing for a very long time. This isn't the pain of youth, which is loud and visible. This is a mature pain, a contained pain, a pain that has learned how to coexist with daily life. It lives just beneath routines, beneath conversations, beneath all the obligations. It doesn't interrupt life, it blends right into it. And that's exactly what makes it so dangerous, because it becomes normalized. The emotional abyss isn't about emptiness. It's about accumulation. It means years of unspoken disappointments, unacknowledged grief, postponed desires, and an emotional hunger that was never satisfied. It means being emotionally available to everyone else, while slowly becoming emotionally absent from oneself. Women over 40 often reach a point where they realize they have been needed more than they have been known. They've been relied upon more than they have been understood. They have carried the emotional labor quietly, resolving conflicts, absorbing tensions, smoothing over relationships, and holding families together. Yet when they look inward, they struggle to find anyone who has truly held them in the same way. Connection starts to feel distant, not because they don't want it, but because they have learned that wanting doesn't guarantee receiving. Over time, hope becomes cautious. Vulnerability becomes selective. Emotional expression becomes filtered. The mind adapts by lowering expectations. The heart adapts by quieting itself. Loneliness at this stage of life is complex. It's not always about being physically alone. It's about being unseen, even in a crowded room. It's about speaking and not being heard, needing and not being met, giving and not being replenished. Many women are surrounded by people, yet feel emotionally isolated because true connection requires presence, not just proximity. As friendships change, marriages shift, and social roles evolve, women over 40 often experience a gradual disappearance from emotional centrality. They are no longer the focus of attention, admiration, or curiosity. Their emotional world becomes less interesting to others, even as it becomes more complex internally. This disconnect between inner depth and external indifference creates a profound psychological tension. The mind responds to this tension by detaching. Emotional detachment isn't coldness. It's self-preservation. It's what happens when expressing emotion repeatedly leads to disappointment. So the mind reduces expression, reduces vulnerability, reduces need. Not because the need disappears, but because acknowledging it feels too costly, too painful. Over time, many women struggle to identify their own emotions. They feel restless, but not sad, tired, but not depressed, disconnected, but not broken. The language for their experience is missing, because society doesn't offer a vocabulary for quiet emotional suffering, especially not for women who are expected to just be grateful at this stage of life. Gratitude is often used as a dismissal. Be thankful you have stability. Be thankful you have a family. And emotional fulfillment doesn't expire with age. Yet women over 40 are often made to feel that wanting connection, depth, and emotional intimacy is somehow unreasonable or selfish. After years of defining themselves through roles, mother, partner, caregiver, provider, many women realize they no longer know who they are outside of what they do for others. The question, "Who am I now?" becomes unsettling because it has no immediate answer. This identity erosion doesn't happen suddenly. It happens quietly. Every time personal desires are consistently deferred, this loss of identity further complicates connection because connection requires a sense of self. To connect deeply, you have to know what you feel, what you need, what you value. When these things become unclear, connection becomes fragile, inconsistent, or avoided altogether. The fear of being misunderstood again, the fear of investing emotionally without return, the fear of appearing needy. These fears aren't irrational. They are informed by experience, and they create emotional distance, even when the longing for closeness remains. The emotional abyss isn't a sign of weakness. It's a sign of adaptation. It reflects how the human mind protects itself from prolonged emotional neglect. It shows how strength, when unreciprocated, transforms into isolation, how independence, when overused, becomes loneliness, how resilience, when unacknowledged, becomes exhaustion. Many women don't speak about this because there seems to be no space for it. They don't want to burden others. They don't want to appear ungrateful. They don't want to reopen wounds that have already scarred over. So they carry their emotional world inward, where it grows heavier with time. This silence has consequences. It affects self-worth. It affects trust. It affects how women view relationships and themselves. Some begin to believe they are emotionally invisible. Some believe their needs are excessive. Some believe connection is something meant for others, not for them. Yet beneath this belief, the need for connection doesn't disappear. It just becomes quieter, but more profound. It shifts from wanting excitement to wanting understanding, from wanting attention to wanting presence, from wanting romance to wanting emotional safety, grief for relationships that never fully formed, grief for conversations that never happened, grief for versions of the self that were never allowed to exist. This grief is rarely acknowledged because there's no clear event to mourn. Understanding this abyss is the first step toward reconnection. Not fixing, not forcing, not denying, but recognizing. Recognition allows emotion to re-enter your awareness. It allows you to realize that your experience is not a personal failure, but a natural emotional consequence. Connection later in life looks different. It's slower, more intentional, more selective. It requires giving yourself permission to need again, even after disappointment. It requires accepting that vulnerability is still possible. Even if the outcomes are uncertain, this space exists to give language to what has been silent, to validate emotional realities that have been minimized, to explore the psychology of quiet suffering and quiet resilience. And understanding is often the first form of connection. If you recognize yourself in these words, it doesn't mean something is wrong with you. It means your mind has adapted to an emotionally imbalanced world. It means you have survived without being fully nourished. And survival, while admirable, is not the end of the story. The emotional abyss inside the human mind is not empty. It is waiting, waiting to be acknowledged, waiting to be understood, waiting for a connection that doesn't demand silence in exchange for belonging. And awareness changes how we relate to ourselves and to others. Slowly, quietly, honestly, for those who have carried so much without being held. For those who are still searching for connection, not loudly, but sincerely. Here, emotional depth is not hidden. Here, silence is not ignored. Here, women over 40 are not invisible. This is where the mind is seen and where connection begins.